Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Man in America. I'm your host, Seth Holhouse. So you're probably like me, watching our country fall into the hands of, what do you want to call it, a communist dictatorship, a globalist tyranny, the beginnings of a one world government which cannot include a sovereign nation such as America. Whatever it is, we're watching our country fall into complete and utter chaos. We're watching the systems that were set up to protect us now being turned against us. The systems that were set up to educate us now being turned against us. We're watching whether it's the education department, the legal department, the justice, everything is now becoming a weapon, even the media, which was initially set up to help inform us, right? To give us information that helps us choose the right leaders and helps us understand, is our government being run properly? That's now become a weapon against us. And so joining us today is someone that has absolutely been on the front lines of this fight, and that's Mr. Rudy Giuliani. And so, but one more recent, article, this just came out, this information that Rudy was among 18 others indicted in Arizona for the election case, right? So here's an Epoch Times article. Trump advisors Meadows Giuliani among 18 indicted in Arizona election case. Now, Trump, we suspect, was also part of that. His name, I think, was redacted, but they do mention a prior U.S. president. And I wonder who else they're indicting. Maybe they're indicting Barack Obama as the prior U.S. president. I don't know. Anyway, so what it says here in this article is a grand jury in Arizona on Wednesday indicted 18 Republicans, including Rudy Giuliani and former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, with conspiracy, fraud, and forgery for submitting a document to Congress falsely declaring that Donald Trump beat Joe Biden in Arizona's popular vote during the 2020 election. It says the court documents identify a prior U.S. president, presumably referring to President Trump, as an unindicted co-conspirator. So if you look at what this represents here, this is a complete disregard for the Constitution. This is a complete disregard for the systems, as I mentioned, that were set up for us, because we have elections, but are they free and fair? We have a right to look at these elections. We have a right to question these elections. And actually, if you go back in history, maybe it's a good thing, because maybe this sets the precedent for, say Trump comes back in to go after most of Hollywood. The people came out and questioned his win in 2020, to go after, or not 2020, 2016, to go after Hillary Clinton, to go after mainstream media, all of the different organizations that also questioned the election. So why is it that now that it's the Republicans that questioned it in 2020 that are now being turned against? And again, this is a weaponization of our system. And so joining us today, I'm very honored to have Rudy Giuliani, former mayor of New York and long-term criminal prosecutor, someone who's actually put mafia families, broken up massive mafia crime syndicates in New York City during his time there, when he made it one of the safest places from being one of the most dangerous places in America. And so I want to ask him the questions about what are we up against? What did he learn in his process of prosecution and breaking down these criminal empires? How can we apply that to the situation that we're in now? Because we're up against that. We're up against not just the mafia that's running, say, like a tri-city operation, but we're up against a global mafia of criminals. And that's what this is. I want to call it for what it is, whether we call it the deep state or, the different names that we have for it. Fundamentally, it is a massive, insanely well-funded, rich, powerful group. And it's a conglomerate of many different groups of criminals, of absolute criminals who want total control over our world. They want to bring about a one world government where there's no such thing as the United States, there's no such thing as Canada, as Mexico, as all those things don't exist anymore. And there's one central government. I mean, it's like what you'd see in a Bond movie. It's the evil villain that wants total control. Well, that's what we're up against. And that entity, that whatever you want to call it, say it's an octopus with all of its tentacles of the deep state, that's controlling our judges, our politicians, our educators, the vast majority of big tech, the unions, the public, perception of the world, of our world, of our country is shaped by this entity, the mainstream media. is absolutely controlled by this. And so how do we get out of this? And this is something, these are some of the questions I want to ask Mr. Giuliani is, how do we get out of this as we, the people, as the Americans, as you, as me, that as we watch our country fall to ruin, and as we think, gosh, okay, in 2016, the solution was to get out and vote. We made significant change. We got Donald Trump in. 2020, the solution, get out and vote, get out and organize. Look what happened. And look what's happened since then. Look as what's happened to our country since Joe Biden took power and since Barack Obama stepped back in, since the deep state, the cabal completely seized control of our government, how much they've changed what's happening in America. We don't have another 4 years of this. I think that we will be Venezuela by if there's another 4 years of this. So it's a question I'm oftentimes thinking. I'm sure you're thinking about it too. Is like, what can we do? What can we do? We can't just resort to violence. I think that's what they want. They would love for us to say, well, you know what, the Second Amendment's here and we're going to overthrow tyranny. And like, that's what they want. They want to bring about martial law. They want violence. They want reasons to shred the Constitution, to shred the Second Amendment. But the real question is then, what are we left with? What can we do? It's like, I feel like sometimes watching a slow motion train wreck. And the problem, though, is that all of your friends and family and everything you care about is on that train. And you're sitting and you're watching it. You're watching it, and there's a wall right across the train track. And you're watching as that train slowly hits the wall and crumples. And everything that you held dear is dying with that train wreck. I feel like that's what's happening to our country. And the hard thing is that I think for a lot of us, we don't know how to stop that train wreck, and we're trying everything that we can, whether it's becoming a digital soldier, whether it's getting involved in your local community, whether it's, passing out flyers, running for office, whatever it is, we're trying so hard to stop that train wreck. But can we? Or is it something that only God can stop? And that's what, a lot of ways, that's what I've come to for myself is that obviously we have to try and do everything possible. Right. I remember seeing there's a saying, it was, how do you expect God to move mountains if you won't pick up a shovel? Right. So we have to pick up the shovel to move these mountains as much as we can. But I've gotten to a place where I think, honestly, that we have to do our best to make our country a country worth saving, improve morality, to root out the evil in this country, and just pray that God will bless our country once again, as he did in 1776 at the founding, where I believe that it was the divine providence that allowed this country to be born. I think that we're at that cycle is back now. That cycle is back now where it really is going to be divine providence that will save this country. Because actually, to be honest, I think even Donald Trump can't stop that train. If he gets into office, he can slow it down, certainly, but he can't stop that train from wrecking because there's so much momentum. There's so much power behind this train wreck. So, a little bit of a monologue there. I guess I can share my thoughts with you occasionally, but folks, I'm honored to have Mr. Rudy Giuliani as a guest. I also, he's being absolutely attacked legally in so many ways. At the end of the show, I'll talk about he has a Give, Send, Go. I encourage you to support him if you can, because he's had so much taken away from him, in sacrifice for this country. So, folks, please enjoy the interview with former mayor of New York City, Rudy Giuliani. Folks, perhaps you'd agree with me when I say that over the past 5 years, the mainstream healthcare system's credibility has plummeted. Alternative healthcare systems that aren't beholden to medical consensus or big pharma are on the rise. Sweetamine is time-tested and proven to boost your life with better health. It's one of the leading products that helps with inflammation and daily aches and pains. Just because you get older, it doesn't mean that you have to feel old. And folks, did you know that most of the diseases that make people sick and die these days are rooted in chronic inflammation, oftentimes due to glycine deficiency? So sweetamine is composed mainly of the amino acid glycine, the nutrient that the immune system uses to regulate inflammation. So with once daily sweetamine, most people feel the reduction in pain after just a few days. So I challenge you to the 12-day sweetamine challenge to fight inflammation and take control of your health today. So folks, buy sweetamine online at sweetamine.com or call 855-GET-SWEET. That's 855-438-7933, and make sure you use promo code SETH, SETH, to get a nice discount on your purchase. Hey, folks, just a quick message for you. Unfortunately, I realized after recording the interview with Mr. Giuliani that there was an echo on his voice. Now, it wasn't his fault. It was actually something on our end because we're working on updating our system here that we're working with. So I thought, what do we do? He's not the kind of guest that's easy to get back on. He's a very busy man. I felt so bad if I had to go back to him and say, hey, I kind of messed things up. But what we did though is we tried to work on it with our audio editing software and make it so that it wasn't as bad. So I apologize in advance if there is a slight echo to his voice. I just thought that the interview was too important to just scrap it. So again, apologies in advance. This stuff happens, unfortunately, especially when you're, a mom and pop home run studio like we are here at Man in America. But I think you're still going to really enjoy the interview. So thank you for your patience, and please, folks, enjoy this pretty incredible discussion with Rudy Giuliani. Mr. Giuliani, it is an absolute honor to have you on the show. Thank you so much for joining us today.
So it's a great pleasure to be with you, Seth. I'm looking forward to the interview.
Good. So there's obviously it's election year, so there's about a million crazy stories we can talk about, but there's two that really come to mind. We've got I'll pull up the recent Epoch Times article. We have the indictment in Arizona because you conspiracy theorists questioned the election in 2020, which was obviously rigged, and now they're coming after you, right? So who cares about the Constitution and the rights that you have to?
Yes, of course, in Arizona, one of the most crooked of them all. Wow.
Imagine that. So we've got that, and we also have these seemingly uncoordinated, but probably very coordinated, anti-Israel, pro-Palestine demonstrations and riots that are popping up, which to me seems like BLM 2020, 2019 2.0. So I'll hand it to you and see what you want to first focus on.
Well, I think in a way, when I talk about New York City, I say right here in New York City, you can see just how far the Biden fascist regime has gone in succeeding in taking control of our government. In certain places, like crooked Democratic enclaves, they have complete control of our judicial system. And it's foolish for us to pretend or think it's like an American system any longer. I've been a lawyer over 50 years, practiced mostly in New York, but in Washington, probably half the states. This is beyond anything in my wildest nightmares as to how crooked the judges are. They are completely dishonest. They're owned by the Democratic Party. They make rulings that defy logic and decency. That describes the New York Supreme Court. That certainly describes the District of Columbia judges who were bloodthirsty for those people on January 6th, when in fact it was the Biden administration that did all the killing. And nobody seems to care about Ashley Babbitt being murdered, looks like in the first degree. It's a turnaround of justice. And that is not all of America. If you're lucky enough to live in a non-crooked Democratic dictatorship, you're going to still experience America in that sense pretty much as it is. But if you live in Chicago or Detroit or New York or Philadelphia or Atlanta or, probably missing about 60 places, notice the cases are all brought in those places. They don't have a Republican prosecutor. I mean, they can't find one. They pick prosecutors with terrible records. Like Smith was only picked because he's an expert at framing, convicting people of things they're not guilty of. And I mean that. I mean, he did it with Governor McDonald. There's almost a textbook case to follow what they want him to do here. He brought all the charges against him. He got him convicted. McDonald couldn't run out of office. Supreme Court reverses 9-0, mostly because of the misconduct of Smith. So when the crooked Attorney General wants to pick somebody who is dishonest to run that case, she picks the guy right in the headlines. If you wanted a case tried fairly, and you wanted both the reality and the appearance of it, you would not select Smith. In fact, he'd be on the number one list not to select. It almost means they don't care what you think, because you have to be stupid not to realize that Smith is there to frame Donald Trump, just like he did in the past. And then when you just compare his case, like the document case, with Biden's documents, and how much more egregious Biden's conduct was taking classified material, and he was not prosecuted because he's a forgetful old man. In all my years as a prosecutor, I never lost a case. Maybe because I knew there was no such thing as forgetful old man fest.
Folks, at the very heart of our democracy lies a principle we hold sacred: free speech. It's the cornerstone that supports every freedom we cherish. Yet, in today's digital age, discussions about our wealth, our rights, and our future are being silenced or overshadowed in mainstream narratives, leaving many feeling voiceless in conversations crucial to our financial independence and security. This is where wealth protection research steps in, armed with a mission that's never been more critical. Wealth Protection Research is not a financial advisory firm. They're defenders of free speech committed to giving a voice to the silenced. Wealth Protection Research tirelessly seeks out financial experts. These are the voices that challenge prevailing narratives, especially as we navigate the uncertainties of the 2024 election. Wealth Protection Research has created a 2024 Election Wealth Protection Report. This free report highlights the 3 best ideas for protecting and growing your money heading into the 2024 election. It contains ideas the mainstream media won't even touch, and listeners can get it completely free. So text IDEAS to 76626 to claim your free copy. If you believe in the sanctity of free speech and the importance of financial freedom, then act now. So text IDEAS to 76626 to claim your free copy of this 2024 Election Protection Report. It's time to widen the scope of what we're told, to hear the ideas the establishment does not think you can handle, and to take control of our financial destinies. So folks, today, text IDEAS to 76626 to claim your free copy.
Gee, a lot of people I put in jail, some of the mafia killers, forgetful old men, they just kill 40 or 50 people. The reality is, it's a shame to say this. We live in America that can no longer say it's in a group of countries that has a fair and equal administration of justice. Not if you're just Donald Trump, not if it's just me or Mark Meadows, but I mean, there are people you've never heard of who are being tortured. They can't get a lawyer. In Atlanta, there were 19 people charged with the president and me and Meadows. 14 of them I never met. I don't know who they are, but I had to help indirectly, at least, in getting them lawyers, because it took weeks to get lawyers who had the courage to represent them. They were literally the lawyer representing Donald Trump in a case right now was thrown out of his law firm. And the Bar Association don't care about that tyranny, that loss of the Sixth Amendment right to counsel, which we used to preserve terrorists and murderers. An ex-president can't get it because they want to wipe him out. Please, the American people, you can get impressed with words like indictment, even conviction. A lot of convictions in the Soviet Union. There were a lot of convictions in Nazi Germany. They all got trials. But they knew the result at the beginning. Does anyone really doubt what the result of the trial in New York is going to be? With a judge who is a lifelong Democrat, attributed to Biden, with a daughter who's making millions of dollars attacking Trump, and with a wife who's the same. It's like a little family where, those who love Trump stay together. I mean, those who hate Trump stay together. Those who love Trump have to be excluded. How can you possibly get a fair trial for this man? The man is wildly, the man and his whole family are wildly committed to the fact that Donald Trump is some kind of monster. They subscribe to the Trump derangement syndrome, which is either feigned or, I believe, we should start listing it in the DSM-5 as a mental illness. So that's where it stays. I expect that us, meaning the group right below Trump, are going to get indicted in every Democratic state we operated in that's controlled by them. I doubt we'll be prosecuted in any honest jurisdiction. Hasn't happened yet. Hasn't happened to him. Hasn't happened. I've only been indicted in one place. That's Atlanta, Georgia. The corruption in Atlanta, Georgia is, I mean, they're getting arrested all the time. That's all I can tell you, right? When I was the mayor of New York, there was a mayor of Atlanta. I knew him quite well. The Yankees used to play the Braves. We used to watch the games together. A couple of years later, they asked what happened. They said, "Oh, he's in jail." I mean, they got a couple of other public officials on trial. My city is successful in corruption. My city is now owned by the same. I mean, it could be Boss Tweed. It's 150 years of Democratic corruption interrupted by occasional independent or Republican mayors. Very occasional. I was the third Republican in the 20th century. And I probably had the best mayoralty. I say that only because I have to for the purposes of people making this contrast. I realized that was a product of a lot of things, including the fact that I was a Republican. And I was free of all the corrupt influences that make Democrat mayors fail and don't have the courage to rise above it.
You mentioned the Soviet Union, Nazi Germany, and if you look at the history of these countries and how they got to the point that they did, Mao's China, et cetera, a lot of times it started with public arrest. It started with trials, as you talked about. But what it ended up with was millions and millions of deaths in concentration camps and gulags. When you look at our country and you see this happening, you see the weaponization of our own government against a former president, are you concerned that we're starting down that trail where America could turn into the Soviet Union, could turn into a communist country where, we could see potentially the same thing happens when you have tyranny? It's mass death, mass destruction. Are you concerned that that's a potential future for America under the current trajectory?
Yeah, I'm so concerned about it. I lose sleep at it. I mean, I really do. I stay up at night thinking, what can we do about it? Sometimes I question myself. Sometimes I say, gee, am I, because I'm in the middle of it, do I lack perspective? Do I think it's gone too far? And I check with other people, and I try to check with other people that aren't involved in it. And a lot of them tell me it's worse on the outside than I see it on the inside, because there are certain protections on the inside. I would say very, very directly to your question, we've crossed the Rubicon. We are now into a country. I wouldn't say that we're a communist, socialist, or Nazi country. We have aspects of that. And they are now ingrained in certain institutions. So to say that the FBI is any longer really a function of the federal government is foolish. It's a police force of the Biden administration. They've covered up so many things for him. You can't expect that if you give something to them, they won't compromise. They've compromised everything I've given to them, and they've compromised everything I know about that was given to them. And they committed, as did Bill Barr and Ray, the unpardonable sin of covering up a hard drive at two times very, very relevant to the future of their country. One of them being impeachment of Donald Trump, which would not have been necessary if we had that hard drive. It had been proven that Biden did what they accused Trump of doing without any need for witnesses. You prove it just with documents. Also, even maybe more important, when they brought it up as sort of an election issue, that it was Russian disinformation, the FBI definitively knew that it wasn't for 8 months. And they allowed Biden to perpetrate that lie with 31 of his friends, or 41 of his friends, or 51, whatever number of lying intelligence agents signed it, who never bothered to look at it. Well, they were all friends of the FBI. And the FBI, knowing that it was untrue, definitively knowing it was untrue, having tested it twice 6 months earlier, and knowing it was Hunter Biden's hard drive, derived from Delaware. They got it from the same place I got it. Kept their mouth shut so that our election could be, our voters could be defrauded. To me, they should go to jail for that. I don't know. I'm missing something, but that isn't that. I mean, of all the election interference we're talking, there's none worse than covering up the hard drive, which is a plethora of criminal, provable information, documents ready to go into evidence that prove Biden's guilt beyond any doubt necessary for you to be completely convinced. And unfortunately and tragically, your president and a lifelong criminal.
And then you had the media that play the role of covering it up and making sure the story doesn't get out. And then you have the social media companies censoring the information. So you can see it's this amalgamation of corruption. I mean, you've taken down mafia families, you've taken down large criminal networks, and I feel like that what we're up against now is the equivalent of that on a global scale. We're up against a global behemoth of a criminal network that own almost everything except for the souls of the American people and the free people around the world. And this is what we're up against.
You couldn't have stated it better. I mean, that's what we're up against. It's we sometimes will call it the deep state. Sometimes we'll call it the establishment. That almost sounds too benign. Yeah. It's like a dictatorship, really. I mean, when they're in power, it's a dictatorship. They use the instruments of government the way, over the centuries, classical dictators have used it. Whether we're talking about in the ancient days, or the Hitlers and the Mussolinis and the Stalins and Lenins. Here's a perfect example between, you could say, is two communists. President Biden wants to buy oil the worst way from Venezuela. Now, why you would want to buy oil from Venezuela when we have as much oil as we need, and Venezuela is a communist state, oppressing the hell out of its people, I don't know. And you're gaining a great deal of success in overthrowing and impoverishing them, as we're doing in Iran before Biden started funding them again. He works it out so there's not enough American oil, and he has to buy, and he starts using up our reserves. So now, in order to replenish our reserves, he has to go to Venezuela. So he either gets or he makes an exception to the sanction, goes to Maduro. And he says to Maduro, the dictator, communist, Stalinist dictator of Venezuela, we want to buy your oil, lift the sanctions, you're going to have to conduct within the next 6 months with free and fair elections. Maduro smiles, shakes his hands, and he said, did you say free and fair elections? As we understand it, yes. He does announce a free and fair election. He gets his money. Then he puts his opponent in jail. And now they're having a free and fair election as defined by Biden and the communists. Put your opponent in jail. Now, what does Biden do? Biden and Maduro could do it with one trial. I've never heard of any man, including Al Capone, charged with 4 things in 1 year. How do you get them all into exactly the time when he's running against you? The most naive person, if they can't figure it out, that's election interference. Somebody should come and run the household affairs, because they really are not smart enough to walk from here to there. 4 cases just don't end up in your election year. But particularly if there have been all these meetings that have gone on between Fannie and her lover and the White House. What's he doing going to the White House? Or Bragg and the White House, or the Justice Department. And of course, they directly control Smith as too. So this is all coming from the White House. It's pretty much the Smith scenario. You don't have to have the conviction stick. You just need it for election day. If after election day it gets reversed, you can blame it on me. But he's not president, hopefully, from their point of view. Now, I have a strange, I sure don't want to see him convicted. And I sure don't know for sure what the effect of that will be, because the word is a very, very onerous word. Now, an unfair conviction can make you a martyr, a saint, but you don't assume an unfair conviction. have these cases been adequately disproven so that when a conviction takes place, it might even be worse? The same way we thought he would be ruined when he was indicted, he went up 10 points. It's a gamble. It's a heck of a gamble you don't want to take at a time in which if we lose, this country may never come back. And I'm not exaggerating that. You give them 4 more years and the rest of our institutions are gone. Look, they've done one heck of an effective job of ruining our education system. There isn't much more they can do to ruin it. They've taken any form of God or morality out of it. Then once they did that, they took teaching out. No, these people don't learn history. I went to Colombia to show solidarity with the Jewish people that are being persecuted there. And I met up with some of the marchers. I have some tape even. One woman doesn't know what she's marching for.
Folks, how do you feel? Me, I feel great. And one of the reasons I believe I feel better is because I take Balance of Nature's fruits and veggies in a capsule. They have an amazing story how this product was developed by Dr. Douglas Howard. It's right there on their website. Balance of Nature receives over 1,000 success stories every single month. They have hundreds of thousands of customers who've purchased billions of capsules of their fruits and veggies over the past 20 years. You should check it all out on their website. Their products are gluten-free and non-GMO, and they contain no added sugars or synthetics. I think if you're looking for something to make you feel better naturally, you should definitely give Balance of Nature a try. In fact, order today. Whether you order online or call them direct, you must use the promo code SETH, that's S-E-T-H, to get this special offer of 35% off plus $10 off any additional sets, plus free shipping and the money-back guarantee. So call them at 800-2468-751 and use discount code SETH, or order online at balanceofnature.com and use discount code SETH to get 35% off.
She asked a friend, she said, yeah, what happened on October 7th? And this girl has a mask on, and she says, I don't know. That's not
Actually, here it is.
Tonight's protest.
I think the goal is just showing our support for Palestine and demanding that NYU stops. I honestly don't know all of what NYU's doing.
Is there something that NYU's doing?
I really don't know. I'm pretty sure they're... Do you know what NYU's doing about Israel? Why are we protesting here?
I was more educated.
I'm not either. I'm from Colombia. I was there at Colombia and we came down and they said NYU students needed our support. So I came down. I heard there's lots of cops. Some people were saying it was getting dangerous.
And what would you say?
So there you go. This is the education system.
I would like to tell you that is atypical. It is. It is exceptional. That I must have talked to. A lot of them talked to me, but I must have talked to or shouted back and forth with about 20 of them. Not one of them could really give me a good explanation. I would ask the question: Did Israel occupy Gaza? Yes. Did Israel colonize Gaza? Yes. Colonize, occupied. Well, first of all, Israel was never colonized. The Jewish people were given that land by Lord Balfour and by the British. Assyria was given their land. Whether that's right or wrong, it was the European powers that carved it up. They didn't come in there and invade and take it. So they're dead wrong about that. Don't know the history. And Israel hasn't occupied Gaza. That's the problem. Since 2005. You read a simple little history book and you know that, which tells me these Harvard students, these Columbia students, aren't reading history books. They're reading about how do I change my gender.
And looking at, so election year, coming in 2020, we saw the BLM, same in 2016, right? That we saw the massive protests. Now, I think the race war, the race card that they were playing seems to have lost its power. And we're now seeing actually a large amount of the African American, the Latino, immigrants, et cetera, are now turning towards Donald Trump because they're seeing the truth. And it's like, oh, actually the Democrats started the KKK. I mean, they're learning these things. But when you look at what's happening now and what you saw happening in Colombia was just one of many that we're now seeing mass mobilization of students across the nation that there's obviously something coordinating that, whether it's George Soros or Barack Obama or whatever it is, the Chinese Communist
Right.
Party. Do you see that this is now the next play for 2024 election? That this is how they're going to create societal
Yeah.
chaos, which allows them to change the rules. Maybe there's martial law. Do you see that playing into things?
I can't be sure. I almost think they don't care about the 2024 election. It's a bigger picture for them. They're thinking in 2030, 2040, and we can have this place. They're marching right through Biden or Trump. And from their point of view, they never voted for Trump. They might have voted for Biden, but they're not going to vote for Biden now. I think they're willing to put up with either president as long as they can continue to build the momentum that America is an unfair country. America has to change its system of government. In the long run, they might end up voting for Biden because he's a little closer to what they are and they can manipulate him. But this is like Biden and the communists, like the genie out of the bottle. And now the genie is in control. And the genie is Islamic terrorism. And in the long run, there's a war to be had between Islamic terrorism and communism. Because Islamic terrorists, in an insane way, in an unhealthy way, believe in God. And if Marx is sure of one thing, it's that God is the anathema to communism. And you can't have a fealty. There's no concept in communism that here on Earth, human law, but in the Grand Kingdom, it's heavenly law. The heavenly law is a Sharia. So they're headed for it. But first, we got to get the United States out of the way. And they've made tremendous progress with Biden and Obama, both of whom I think are, at least Biden was when he was ascension. And I think they're knowing players. I began very early starting to feel that Biden didn't love the United States. I wouldn't hear him say the things that other American presidents said, even like Clinton. I love the United States. Look at all the United States has done for me. All I've ever heard him is complain about it. And his wife. So I said, this is strange. This is even for political purposes. The president will say he loves the United States. This man worked for somebody else. He's not. He can show more affection for us. And look at Biden. Biden doesn't care about New Palestine or if three cops getting murdered in the street. He doesn't even remember their names, or he gets Laken Riley's name wrong. That part of that is his dementia. Part of it is it's not within his bailiwick. I mean, if God forbid some cop kills somebody, he'll be all over it.
How do you think we can stop this? There's millions of Americans that share these exact same views that you and I have. They're fearing that our country's undergoing a communist takeover. It used to be, say, 5-10 years ago, go out and vote. They don't trust the vote now. They know that so much of it's rigged. They're still going to be out there as much as they can. And they're just wondering, what can we do? That everything is compromised. All we have left in some sense is our First Amendment, which is under attack, our Second Amendment, which is under attack, which that's a big difference between us and Soviet Union or Nazi Germany, for instance. They had already taken away all the guns by the time they moved in with the complete dictatorship. But what can we do? How can we save our country from turning into communist China or Nazi Germany or Soviet Russia?
We have no room for error in this election. It could be an election from which we don't come back if we make the wrong choices or buy into the virulent propaganda, particularly directed at Trump, but also anyone like me or look at Peter Navarro in jail. I mean, if you knew Peter Navarro, you'd say to yourself, this is the last likely man ever to think of being in jail. Meanwhile, in my city, there are 7,000 to 8,000 criminals running around the street that would have been in jail and were in jail when I was the mayor. They literally took people out of jail to commit crimes. Can you imagine this in 2019? Governor Andrew Cuomo who, whatever else he is a out of control, criminal-loving Democrat. With the full support of our entire Democratic Party, changed the law on releasing cop killers who had life in prison. Since then, they had a seal that 39 have been released. 39 people who killed police officers are running around the city of New York. Now, that's symbolic. There were also 7,000 to 10,000 people who are causing these crime waves. Stores are moving out of New York left and right. If you walk into an ordinary, decent drugstore and you want to buy toothpaste, some places they're under lock. Toothpaste, $2.98. It's under lock and key. People in stores are told not to stop. They're not even just simple thefts. Ones that they come in with bags. They wipe out a whole area and they walk out. In one case, the people at the store tried to stop it. They got into a fight. I think they may have succeeded. And then they were fired because it's against the rules to stop, because they'd rather take the liability for the theft than the liability for the killing or the whatever. That's not America. That's not even a civilized country anymore. And the police feel they can't do anything about it. And I sit here with my old friends who turned around the city. Much worse than it is now, by the way. 5 times worse on the murder. When we were told it couldn't be done, everybody else tried to fail. And I was convinced we were going to do it or die, one or the other. I mean, if we didn't do it, well, we would die trying. And we reduced crime more than any time in the history of the city. We reduced crime more than any city ever in the history of the United States. And was it hard? Sure it was hard. But is it doable now? Of course it is. It's a matter of human will. I mean, but you've got to. This is a time in which Democratic Party, not the poor people who belong to it, they're just unfairly targeted. Democratic Party means Communist Party. It means anti-American party. It means pro-criminal party. It means they want non-citizens to come in and vote. You allow non-citizens to vote, people just can come in here anytime and vote. You don't have an American anymore, which is what they don't want anymore. You read Soros, or even some of Obama's talking, they want one world. And they got a shock coming from them. They ain't gonna be running that one world. China is.
Certainly. Well, I know that you've got a very tight schedule, but before we sign off, I want to bring up one of the big questions that we're going to get is how can people support you? You're on the front lines. You're being, the entire system is weaponized against you. You've got to give, send, go. This is givesendgo.com/Rudy. I'll put the link in the description. So if anybody wants to help support you in your legal defense, or even just come on here and say, hey, we're going to pray for you, whatever it is, this is how.
We got a couple. I'm convinced they're going to probably indict us in 4 or 5 other Democratic dictatorships. They just take these one place, they print it up, and they put it in the other. Very often they make big mistakes because of that. But then they get crooked judges who don't pay attention to it. So, unfortunately, to really contest and make the motions that are necessary to get some of them dismissed, it's very expensive.
Yeah. Well, I hope that people can help support you because you're certainly on the front lines of this. And
thank you. You should also know you're supporting a lawsuit against Joe Biden as well. I'm suing Joe Biden for defamation, for calling me a Russian pawn when he damn well knew that I wasn't. Because the FBI told him I wasn't, and he wasn't president at the time. He did it during the second debate with Donald Trump on national television. He said, your pal, Rudy Giuliani, is a Russian pawn. And basically, so we knew. So I asked him if it was all right. I wouldn't do anything without it. He thought he thinks it's a great idea. Hopefully we can get discovery on how many of those scoundrels knew about this and how they fought it.
I hope so. Well, if there's one person that knows how to bring down crime families, it's you. So
I got to use the challenge you have. Yeah. You're a fabulous interviewer and speaker. I can see that you influence a lot of people.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, it's because I get the opportunity to have guests like you that allow us to reach a lot of people. So thank you again. Thank you again. It's such a pleasure speaking with you. Folks, at the very heart of our democracy lies a principle we hold sacred: free speech. It's the cornerstone that supports every freedom we cherish. Yet, in today's digital age, discussions about our wealth, our rights, and our future are being silenced or overshadowed in mainstream narratives, leaving many feeling voiceless in conversations crucial to our financial independence and security. This is where wealth protection research steps in, armed with a mission that's never been more critical. Wealth protection research is not a financial advisory firm. They're defenders of free speech committed to giving a voice to the silenced. Wealth protection research tirelessly seeks out financial experts. These are the voices that challenge prevailing narratives, especially as we navigate the uncertainties of the 2024 election. Wealth protection research has created a 2024 election wealth protection report. This free report highlights the 3 best ideas for protecting and growing your money heading into the 2024 election. It contains ideas the mainstream media won't even touch, and listeners can get it completely free. So text ideas to 76626 to claim your free copy. If you believe in the sanctity of free speech and the importance of financial freedom, then act now. So text ideas to 76626 to claim your free copy of this 2024 election protection report. It's time to widen the scope of what we're told, to hear the ideas the establishment does not think you can handle, and to take control of our financial destinies. So folks, today, text ideas to 76626 to claim your free copy.